Hothead is an amazing rocket launcher returning to us from Destiny 1. So in this video, I'll go over how you can get the Hothead and which perks you want to look out for on a God Roll. Coming up. If you're new to this channel, you're probably not subscribed, because about 95% of you guys are not subscribed. So if you find this guide helpful, make sure you do subscribe. Hothead is an arc rocket launcher that gets some crazy good rolls. With some of these perks, this can even rival some of the best. Code Duello, Sleepless, and even Hezen's Vengeance. You get this weapon from Nightfalls. At the end of each Nightfall, you have a chance of getting a Nightfall specific weapon drop. Each week, the Nightfall weapons change. There will be 2 Nightfall weapons per week. One from Season of the Lost, and one from a previous season. If you're watching this video the week that it releases, Hothead is currently available to farm for. After this week, it will be the Comedian Shotgun, and then back to the Hothead. The higher the difficulty of the Nightfall, the higher your chances are of getting a weapon to drop. So that being said, I'd recommend running the hardest difficulty that you feel like you can comfortably run at a good pace. So if your team is underleveled for Master Nightfalls, go with the Legend difficulty. If you are a solo player and you need a team, you want to go with the Hero difficulty. This is the highest level that has matchmaking, and these can be run much faster than any others. You might not get anything from your first few tries, but being able to matchmake makes grinding for these much easier. Whenever the Grandmaster Nightfalls are released on October 5th, the Adept version of the Hothead will also become available. This can take Adept mods and will get an additional +3 to all of its stats when it's masterworked. Moving on to the best rolls that you want to look out for on a God Roll. First things first, on rockets, you want to get high velocity and handling. High velocity allows for your rocket to travel to an enemy faster. Most champions and bosses move around a lot, so minimizing the amount of time they have to move around will result in fewer missed rockets. Handling is also important when it comes to champions because you need to swap between your rocket for high damage and your primary to stun the champion. All of that being said, hard launch is the best option for high velocity, giving a +15 at the cost of stability, which is never important on a rocket, and blast radius, which isn't too important unless you plan on using this for ad clear, but I doubt anyone would run a rocket just for ad clear. For better handling and stability, you could also go with quick launch to give +15 to handling and +10 to velocity, with no other downsides. Either one of these perks are great. In the second column, go for impact casing. This increases your damage by 10% when you hit your target directly. None of the other perks in this column are able to increase your damage, so this is going to be the best by far. Ideally, you're hitting your targets directly anyway, so it acts as a passive damage buff that stacks with some of the other damage options on this weapon. Moving on to the third column, we have 3 options that really stick out. Tracking allows for your rockets to track to targets. This is a safe option for those of you who have a hard time hitting enemies directly, or if you want to further minimize the chances of bosses stepping out of the way of your rockets. After all, hitting your shot is infinitely better than missing one. However, this is not my top pick because it doesn't push the limits of what this can do, unlike something like Field Prep. Field Prep allows you to carry more total rockets in your reserves. This greatly increases your total damage of the Hothead. Even though it doesn't increase the damage of each rocket, having 2 or 3 rockets available will boost the damage over a longer period of time. This will especially be useful in GM Nightfalls when you're forced to kill a dozen or more champions throughout a strike. Not to mention, Field Prep also boosts reload speed while you're crouching. This is hardly a downside when it comes to single target DPS, especially when your whole team is standing inside of a well of radiance. Overall, I believe Field Prep is the best perk for this slot. However, there is another perk that you could consider. Demolitionist allows you to shoot a rocket, then throw a grenade to reload. You won't be able to do this as consistently as similar perks on other rockets because you won't always have a grenade available, but with certain grenade builds, you can have this up very often, or in some encounters like Atheon, you can have unlimited grenade charges during DPS. But outside of that, for consistency's sake, I would go with Field Prep over Demolitionist. Now, onto the final column. We have 3 things that stick out. First up is Clown Cartridge. Reloading this weapon will always overfill the magazine to 2 rockets. Always having 2 rockets is actually insane. You only have to reload half the time, so you'll be able to get off a lot more rockets in a shorter amount of time. Pair this with Field Prep, and you'll not only shorten that reload speed, but you'll also have more rockets in total. This is such a great perk, and it usually gets overshadowed by things like Overflow. I think you should try it out if you do manage to get one, and you may just be surprised. Next up is Vorpal Weapon. This will increase your damage against bosses, champions, and vehicles by 15%. This is an amazing perk because, just like impact casing, it raises the total damage and you don't need to do anything special. A passive 15% damage bonus is always welcomed on any heavy weapon. And last but certainly not least is Explosive Light. Picking up Orbs of Power will increase your next rocket's damage and blast radius. This is easy to get going, being that Masterwork weapons spawn Orbs of Power, and during damage phases you can pick up your allies' orbs from Well and Bubble. This will end up being about the same as Vorpal Weapon, which is a bit unfortunate since you do need to go out of your way to pick up Orbs of Power. However, this may be because of a glitch. When you shoot an enemy with a rocket, you always get 2 damage numbers: impact damage and blast damage. The reason this is doing the same amount of damage is because the perk only affects one of the numbers of the rocket. If this is unintentional, Bungie may fix this in the future to affect both numbers. If they ever do fix it, Explosive Light will easily surpass Vorpal and become the top option for this weapon, but until then, Vorpal will be the best damage perk. Alright, so let's look back at the god rolls of the Hothead rocket launcher. Firstly, you want hard launch or quick launch to increase the velocity of your rockets. Impact casing for increased damage when you hit an opponent directly. Then for the most amount of rockets, and thus the highest total damage, go with field prep. And finally, go with either Clown Cartridge to shoot more rockets over a shorter amount of time, or Vorpal Weapon for higher damage per rocket. And once again, if Bungie ever changes Explosive Light, go with that in place of Vorpal. I hope this video helped you out. If it did, you can help me out by liking the video, sharing it with a friend, and subscribe to the channel for more Destiny 2 content like this. Also, consider hitting that join button next to subscribe to become a channel member. Thanks for watching, I'm Marshix, and I'll see you next time.